Good morning and welcome back. I'm Tim, and today I want to start talking to you about probably one of the most foundational pieces of who I am. It's how my life began to turn around and how everything just started to change one day. Today I want to talk to you about exactly what break the meta is and how it changed my life. So for those of you who know me, you know that I'm a gamer. I worked for GameStop for a long time, and specifically when I said that I'm a gamer, I play League of Legends. I love other games too, but it always comes back to League of Legends. And in League of Legends, there is a contextual term called meta, standing for most effective tactic available. And honestly, I hate the term. I don't know, it's something in me that just does not want to follow the standard protocol of what's good and what is the most effective way to do things. For instance, if I said the current meta includes this character or this character, it is the easiest character to play at the easiest skill cap to get the most return on an investment. So long ago, I started the gaming community break the meta because I always played the characters that everybody didn't play. It just made sense to me. It was a lot more fun. It was a lot more interesting. When you follow the meta, life gets extremely boring. You know, you have to play this character and you have to buy items in this specific order because League of Legends is all about itemization and being effective with the lowest gold cost or investment or whatever. And I hated it. You know, I hate being told what to do. It's the pride in me, I think. But following the meta has never really been my thing. So I would always play the characters or champions, as we call them, that nobody else would play, and in ways that people wouldn't play them. I just found it more exciting. It caused me to be more creative. And I love the responses from people. Once again, my pride coming up. I love the responses from people when they would say, "Oh, you did that and you succeeded? What the heck?" You know? And unfortunately, a lot of the times I didn't succeed. A lot of the times I fell on my face because I was trying something new that not many people have done and that I really didn't know how to do well myself. But when you follow the meta and you follow what has been predetermined as the best way to go about doing something, there's a certain balance of cost and risk that you have to meet. You know, most effective tactic available. Basically, you get the highest reward with the least amount of risk and investment possible. And that kind of equalizes the playing field for a lot of people. But the detriment in that, and the thing that sucks about it, is it kills all creativity. You know, for instance, in the game, you accumulate wealth and you accumulate money by killing these little minions, and you get, I think, 25 gold for some of them, 12 for others. And then it becomes a math equation instead of fun. At 10 minutes, you're supposed to have, 10 minutes into the game, that is, you're supposed to have a certain amount of minions killed with a certain amount of gold, and you're supposed to go back to the shop, buy a specific item, and maintain a particular cadence in the game in order to be the most effective. And if you get behind, you start beating yourself up if you play competitively like I do and have in the past, and you start to hate it. It really starts to suck because you realize that it's not about fun anymore. It's about following a pattern based on something that you don't quantify yourself for success. And if you do it because you compare yourself to other people. And guys, as you navigate life and where this whole meta concept came from, striving is not how we're meant to live. We're not supposed to strive to enjoy a video game. We're not supposed to strive in our relationships. We're not supposed to strive in our purpose. We're not supposed to strive in how we get through life. It's supposed to be an adventure. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to break open who we are, and the desires are supposed to pour out of us. The Bible says that there is a way that seems right to a man, and it's really easy to get caught up in things thinking, oh, well, this is how it should be. especially when you're following when you're following directions, or if you're following a recipe. Recipes are awesome, and I love cooking, and I almost never follow recipes, and it perplexes me when people say, oh, cooking is difficult, or they say that they can't follow a recipe or cook anything. Because once you understand the process behind it, it just kind of makes sense. And that's true with almost anything, whether you're fixing a car, playing a video game, navigating relationships. It's always going to be messy. It's never going to be perfect. And much like cooking, sometimes you can do the same thing, but the outcome is always wildly different, and it tastes a little bit better or worse because of how you've done it. So there's a way that seems right to a man. We can impose expectations on ourselves that quantify our level of success. And when we don't hit that, we think, oh, I've failed. And a lot of times, especially with social media, with teachers, not all teachers, actually, instead of teachers, I want to say people that we look up to for guidance, especially if they're misguided people. They can put these unrealistic expectations on us that cause us to aspire towards things that we weren't meant to aspire towards in the first place, or things that we were meant to aspire towards, but not in the right way. You know, sometimes we can all chase things and just chase it in the complete wrong fashion, form, or way. Our plan. I want to talk about my plan for life early on. And I grew up loving Disney movies. I love stories. I love movies, especially where there are dragons and there's adventure and you have to save the princess. It was always modeled for me that the guy was going to go on some kind of adventure. There's a force that I'm supposed to take down, something I'm supposed to conquer, something in myself, a shortcoming that I'm supposed to overcome, and then there's going to be some kind of happy ending. And in life, a lot of us think that looks like education. We're supposed to go to school, get an education. We're supposed to 1, 2, 3, go to college, get a job, 401k. Then we're supposed to start a family. Then we're supposed to get a house, and boom, you're a success. And then at some point in your life, you retire, and that's what was modeled for me for a very long time. Relationships also. It was modeled to me that you meet the girl across the room, or from across the room, you make eye contact, or you meet her somewhere, you buy her flowers, you court her, you do all the chivalrous, borderline misogynistic things. And then you get into a relationship. The guy pays for everything. You open the door. You get married. The guy goes out and this is the plan for my life that I had. There were all these expectations that I thought that I was supposed to chase, and I never once questioned, well, what are my expectations? What's actually real for me? And back when I was setting these expectations, I didn't really know who God was in my life. I had a concept of God, and that was based on a Southern Baptist fabrication of what I thought he was like on the outside, based on how I've interacted with people who have modeled him for me in the past. And I'm not saying that Southern Baptist Christianity is bad, or that those people are bad. All I'm saying is that it's really easy for God to get misrepresented, and for us to not see him the way that he wants to be seen. Look at the Old Testament. That is essentially people taking God's heart with their culture and expectations, mixing the two, and doing something in God's name and completely missing the point. But getting back on board with the idea of a plan, it's really easy to have that plan and to expect perfection out of ourselves. When you get out of school, high school specifically, and you're thinking about what college to go to, there's a lot of crap that's wrapped up in that. There's a lot of anxiety that's wrapped up in that. Oh, did I pick the right school? Oh no, did I get in? Oh, it's a technical college, not a 4-year college. What's my degree? General business? Am I going to be able to do anything with that? Personally, I wanted to be an artist growing up. And specifically, I wanted to be a pencil artist, or something to that effect. And there were a lot of people that told me that I was not going to make money. I wasn't going to succeed. It's really hard. And that sowed a lot of doubt in my heart. And so I took the route of just taking general business classes. I had no clue where I wanted to go. I just knew that going to school is probably a good idea. Getting an education, it makes sense. And that's the thing about deception. Deception always has some semblance of truth in it that makes logical sense. And you latch onto that and you think, okay, well, this makes sense, so it must be true. Right? But that's not always the case. When you're chasing a meta, a most effective tactic available that's set within confines of something that you didn't choose yourself, it's really, really easy to get into comparison. When I was when I was going through my 20s and trying to figure life out, Facebook was becoming more and more of a thing. And I would look at the lifestyle of my friends and what they were doing. And because a lot of them pursued school in a different fashion, which was what I thought the best meta available, and they were succeeding with it, I compared my life to theirs, and I would think to myself, man, why am I even trying? Or when I would look at relationships, in my early 20s, I had a relationship with somebody and it didn't really pan out. They broke up with me. And they did it on the foundation of God told her that this relationship wasn't right. And that really didn't compute to me back then. I didn't talk to God back then. It did make sense. And so I was early 20s thinking to myself, okay, this person broke up with me because, well, I guess it's because I don't have a 4-year degree. I guess it's because I don't have a relationship with God. Foundationally, I'm kind of messed up. I live in a trailer with my parents in my early 20s when I should be on my own. I make a lot of excuses for myself. And at the time I was in Amway. I was trying to latch on to something that could create a lifestyle for me that I thought that I wanted. Everything in me wanted something that I wasn't. Everything in me wanted something that was going to sate an insecurity that I had, an insecurity about my value, an insecurity about how much money I had, an insecurity about my worth as a man. And guys, if you're questioning your worth as a man, my heart goes out to you, because that is going to be a lifelong thing that you're going to have to struggle with. Well, I don't want to say struggle with. That is a lifelong thing that you're going to have to battle against. It's always going to be tested. But when you struggle so much with petitioning for your own worth, petitioning, I don't even know if that's the right word. When you struggle so much with trying to preserve your worth, and you're trying to chase that and achieve your worth, especially when there's so many other people out there that you think are doing it more swimmingly than you are, that comparison is always going to create some kind of anxiety or depression or the lack of gratitude, man. Like, in my early 20s, my parents supported me. They really did. Like, I stayed at home with them, and I had really loving parents. They didn't get everything right, but they allowed me to stay at home. They allowed me the grace to fail and to try things. They didn't hard hand me into certain paths of life. They would make recommendations, and obviously, when I wasn't being accountable to myself, there were relationship butting of heads. But for the most part, they allowed me to figure things out on my own. And, once again, that's a healthy thing, but it can also be an enabling thing. You have to be careful with that. But from my position, there were so many things that I was chasing after, things that I thought that I wanted, things that I thought that I needed, that I wasn't super thankful in the moment for where I was. I wasn't thankful for the fact that my parents were supplying me with a place to live. I was lamenting the fact that we lived in a double-wide trailer. I wasn't thankful that my parents would buy me food when I wanted or needed it. I was lamenting the fact that we were always stressing about money. And by we, I mean they. I would get a paycheck, and instead of putting it towards savings, which I didn't understand savings at all back then, I would just go out and buy a video game. I would go out and buy $200 leather bag. Like I was freaking 20 years old living at home, and instead of putting money in savings and thinking about a house or putting it towards education or something, I'm like, okay, well, I want to improve how people see me. And Maxim magazine says that guys need to be interesting. You need to dress well, dress for success. So I would buy clothes from Express. I would spend $80 on a single shirt from Express and buy a freaking $150 leather bag from Fossil. thinking that was going to fix who I was. So why exactly is the meta a huge deception? Well, it's because grace has almost no place in it. There are very defined values of what it means to be successful when you follow the meta. And when I say meta, I mean applicable towards your life, whether it's schooling, education, relationships. As I mentioned earlier, it's the combined sum of what you navigate in life. There's a meta for every single part of it. When you follow that, especially when you yourself have not defined your values and your priorities, what actually matters to you, what you're chasing, you're living by somebody else's standards. You're not living by your own standards, and that is deadly. There's no grace there. You see, a lot of students get caught up, a lot of kids, a lot of young adults get caught up in thinking, I have to be way up here, so I should be striving towards this. And the second you fail, your value is gone. In school, that was often modeled. If you would get an F on something, you'd be looked at like somebody of low intelligence. You would be looked at like, oh, you just don't get it, you're lazy, all these things. When in actuality, it may have been something as simple as how you're learning or how you're being taught. You may have had something at home that was influencing your ability to study, or it would divert your attention. You may have been more focused on being insecure than actually studying. You might have been more focused on being accepted and being bullied and just how mean other kids could be, and you weren't even focused on your education. There's so many other factors that go into your process than just the process. And that's why grace is so absolutely necessary. If you judge your life and if you judge your success and how your forward motion based on the approval of other people and the system around you, you're never going to make it anywhere, because you're never going to be enough. That specifically is why through almost my entire 20s, it was full of striving. Now, striving is when you push yourself beyond your current level of growth. Striving is where you try to be something that you're not because you think that's who you have to be. When you think about the forward motion of life, as I was mentioning, you think that it's a straight line. Just like I said earlier, the cadence of life, my plan was to get out of high school, go to college, get my education, get a job, get established, get the security. I know we all pursue and want security. We desire security. Make myself a good mate. Make myself somebody that a woman would want to be with, would feel encouraged by, protected by. Everything that Maxim Magazine or Cosmopolitan and Facebook makes it seem like you need to be. Do a good job in loving her, be self-sacrificial. And then once you date, you save up for a ring. You're supposed to save, 3 months of your salary, get that nice rock, propose in an awesome way, fanfare, have it recorded, make her cry. Ooh, this is so awesome. Get married, have a kid, picket fence, save up for retirement, mow your lawn on weekends. It's a straight line of perfection. And it's so tough because that's not how things go. God has no place in the meta because it's a relationship with him that's it's back and forth. Grace is back and forth, accountability, grace to grow into who we're designed to be. Life isn't about perfection. It's about the crazy adventure that God wants to take you on, to navigate your weaknesses and to discover your strengths in how he's made you. I was reading my notes there, if you can't tell. But that's why a relationship with God is so important. And that's honestly where my life changed. I'll get to that in a minute, but the way God works is not what was modeled for me by the Southern Baptist people that I was exposed to at a young age, where they take you in this back room and you don't really understand what's going on, and you're supposed to say the sinner's prayer. And I stumbled through the sinner's prayer, and the guy got frustrated with me because I couldn't repeat it. It's like, my salvation is based on saying this prayer. No, it's not. My salvation is based on my relationship with God. And when you have a relationship with somebody, anybody, there has to be grace. There has to be an ebb and flow, a back and forth of grace, accountability, grace, accountability, grace, accountability. Ooh. And what that does is it grows your level of intimacy with your level of commitment. The more you commit to something, the more intimacy you can expect. You commit more, you get more intimacy. You do more and you're more loyal, you're more committed, you invest more, you get more. That's how relationships work. And I don't say that from the perspective of by getting more, expecting more out of them. Your investments are supposed to come back to you, pressed down, shaken up, overflowing, much like when you put a kernel of corn in the ground and you plant it and you nurture it. You wait a while, you wait a season, and then it comes up with a harvest, producing 1,000-fold. That's what relationships are. But if you put a seed in the ground expecting it to come up on your timeline, it's not going to work. You're going to be sorely disappointed, and relationships are the same way. If I expected my wife to change because I gave her one nugget of what I thought was wisdom, I'm going to be pretty disappointed when her life doesn't turn the way that I think it should. And that's how the relationship is with God as well. God has not once put me in a place where, Tim, you need to do this. You need to change your life. You need to follow these expectations. The term legalism is rampant in the Christian community. You have a relationship with God based on actual relationship, and then you have a relationship with God based on legalism, where there's a series of check boxes that you have to go through in order to quantify your level of success. Now, what does it actually mean to have success in relationship? And honestly, to me, that's having patience. That's having grace for somebody. It's having giving them mercy. So a good friend of mine, Brandon Brown, was teaching me way back when that the difference between mercy and grace is that mercy is when you don't receive something that you should, and grace is when you receive something that you shouldn't. If you have a healthy relationship in your life, you know that when you've butt heads with somebody and you actually love them, that's an opportunity for you to lay down your pride, lay down your striving, lay down your insecurities and say, okay, well, what matters to you? You matter more than my circumstances. Let me put this aside. Let me value you. And guys, if I'm honest with you, I don't do that well. Whenever I have a conflict with somebody, I get this little tightness here that wells up, and it makes me feel like I'm being attacked, even if I'm not being attacked. It's really tough for me in my relationships with people, just being completely honest with you guys, to quiet that voice inside of me of defense, because for the longest time I had insecurity about who I am and my value. And it's just residue left over from those times. I didn't think that other people truly had my welfare at my best welfare at heart. I didn't feel like people actually cared about me. And that's a learned process. And I started to learn that when I learned who God was in my life, and that he wasn't going to give up on me whenever I did something bad. And it's not just doing something bad. I want to clarify with clean language and say that when I stumbled through something that I've never been through before, or when I had a moment of weakness and I knew better, but I chose differently. So what the heck does this have to do with what we're talking about? The meta, life, changing, God, and all that. What does grace and mercy have to do with that? Well, as you're navigating life and you think that the trajectory is like this, and you're striving, trying to make things perfect, you don't give yourself the room for failure. And when you don't do that, you think that your value hinges based on your level of success, which if you go to your bank account, it's often, especially if you think about money a lot, if you've made an idol out of money, looking at your bank account, you can easily quantify your level of success, and you have a certain feeling regarding that. Or if you look at the relationships in your life, how many of you have looked at your Facebook or Instagram followers and thought, man, I only have X amount of followers. I need to get more. People need to like me. Oh man, I only have 300 people as friends. What the heck? I was totally that person. I kind of still am that person, if I'm honest. And I have to fight that, I have to understand that as I progress forward, there are going to be people who don't agree with me, and I'm going to lose some of those friends, right? But you have to think, okay, well, growth is never like this. Growth is like this because you have to allow yourself time to heal. You have to allow yourself time to make mistakes. When you venture into a new territory, when you go into a new place, you're not going to know what to do there. You know, when you go camping and you go out in the woods and you pitch a tent, you search for a place that's level ground. And once you find that place, you kind of check out the area and you find, oh, okay, well, this area over here might be wet. Oh, there's sticks over here that we can use for a fire. Oh, there's a stream right over there. It takes a while to gain your bearings, you know? It's really easy to go through life thinking, okay, well, I'm in this new place. I've already got everything figured out. I'm in this new place. I've already got everything figured out. And when you do that, you live a false life. You strive to be somebody that you're not. You strive to be something that you're not. Now, the reason I keep bringing God up in this is because legitimately, guys, that's where my life turned around. I know that's an extremely cliche thing to say or to hear words. That's an extremely cliche thing for somebody to say, but it's absolutely true. And you probably don't understand it unless you've actually been through it. You know, some of you might be shaking your heads right now in disbelief or like, oh, he's just another one of those guys. You know, if you're doing that, I'm sorry that you've been hurt and that you've seen a relationship with God modeled for you in the past poorly. And I want to apologize ahead of time because I know that through our walk together as I model or try to model God for you and what he's been doing in my life and show you like all the back. I'm not going to do it well. But it's just part of my story. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to convert you either. I just want to be honest about what has changed my life, why and how. And it all began with that. So how did it happen? Sometime around 2014, I was in a relationship and I really want to honor and respect the girl that I was in a relationship with by not naming her. And she was a cool person. We hung out. It was fun. We did a lot of stuff together. We went places together. We shared a lot of things, anime, video games, Korean K-pop culture, conventions. It was fun, and I used to have this little locket that I wore around my neck, and I had like all these expectations of what I wanted. And back then, I would say that I was more agnostic. I acknowledged that there's probably some great being out there in the ether or whatnot. And if it's there, this is what I want. And it was very specific, based on my worldly influences, what I wanted her to look like, where I wanted her to be from, the things that all these 40 things, and I was like, God or whoever is out there, this is what I'd like to find. Because all throughout my 20s, I said no to a lot of relationships. Because after that earlier relationship in my early 20s, I decided that I didn't want to date until I was a final product. Like I was ever going to be a final product. But I was like, okay, well, this is what I want. So I waited and I said no to a lot of relationships. I met this girl and she everything on the list, tick, 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 tick. And so I introduced myself, we started dating, and it was really fun. And it got to a point where it didn't really feel like a relationship. It felt like a friendship, I think. But it definitely didn't feel like a relationship. And I know that was largely due to my expectations and how I managed, I won't even say managed, I navigated my own self in the relationship. And I told her one day, I'm not really happy. I don't feel like this is it's just, I'm not happy. And we broke up and it was pretty traumatic. She didn't do anything traumatic. Like she was very gracious in helping me navigate. And, she had her own, things that she was dealing with too. But, it really messed up my sense of who I was, because I thought that I had done everything properly. I thought that she was the one because the gods or whoever was out there finally brought me everything that was here. And I was like, oh, this is got to be coincidence. This is perfect, you know? And I thought, okay, well, you know, I have a steady job, making decent money. I look good. I smell good. You know, on Facebook, if you went to my social media, you know, I had great pictures up. I had smart things that I had posted. You know, I bought all of our meals. If she had a dead car battery, I would save her. I thought I was doing everything perfect, and it crumbled. And so I was in a place where I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I feel like I did everything as close to perfectly as I could, and I still failed. What the heck? And man, it really messed me up, you know? I would just sit in my room, because I still lived at home with my parents, and I was like 27 or 28 or something. And I was really depressed, man. It sucked. I felt like who I was never going to be good enough. I felt like I was unlovable because I had this other relationship where the girl said, oh, well, God told me not to break up or not to be in relationship with you. I was like, okay, well, your God doesn't approve of me. Okay, cool. That sucks. And then I thought that I'd gotten to a place was like 7 or 8 years later of saying, no. I thought I'd finally gotten to a place where I can be loved by somebody. And then that crumbled. And so I was at this weird place where I thought, oh man, I'm finally here, and nothing. And so I thought that I was just unlovable. I thought that I was always going to be messed up. I thought that I was just some 28-year-old guy escaping my insecurities and escaping real life into... I played Final Fantasy XI online for years, ignoring my true responsibilities and being accountable for my life. And so 28, living at home in a double wide trailer with my parents. They're paying for my phone bill. My car just had been repossessed. I'd got some other beater car. I was trying to build my credit back up. I was working at GameStop. I think at that time I was like a third key manager, making like $9 an hour, and doing it, man, you know? And all my friends on Facebook were married with kids. You know, they had 4-year degrees. They had solid jobs. They were making $70,000, $80,000 a year. And here I was. I met a guy named Brandon Brown, and we went to this place called Muddy Creek. It's here in Winston-Salem. And he's talking to me about the concept of love and my value, which was a new concept to me. What exactly was love? You know, love just prior to understanding what I'm about to get into, love was just a feeling. It's something that you felt when it went away. That's it. There was actually a girl in high school that I dated, and I feel really bad about this because she was an amazing girl. We were dating, and she was really pretty. She was very loving. She was really appreciative. She was very sincere. And I remember, I don't know how long it was, a couple months or something. I wrote her a note because back then we didn't have texting. We had little notes that we would write. I wrote her a note saying that the tingles were just gone. And I broke up with her because I didn't feel the same tingle, right? The dopamine wasn't there from the initial rush of beginning a relationship. But that's how I viewed love. I viewed love as a feeling, like something that if I feel it, awesome. If I don't feel it, must not be love. And then Brandon starts talking to me about Jesus. Then he starts talking to me about God. And you have to understand, growing up down here in the South, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, all my life, Bible Belt, I had a concept of who God was. I had a concept of religion. I hate that term. But it definitely wasn't a definition of love. The concept that I had here, I keep pointing here, but I mean here. The concept of love that I had here did not compute with what love actually is. So he's talking to me about how I do have value and how God loves me in my weakest moments. And throughout my life, I was in Amway, and they taught business principles based on the Christian faith, which, made sense to me. Seed time, harvest time, progression time, seed time, progression time, harvest time. Build or sow into other people, and you'll eventually get what you want. All these different concepts that made sense, and then putting a label of this is Jesus' nature on it was totally a foreign concept to me, even though that's something that I guess was modeled for me for years, and I was completely missing the heart, kind of like Moses in the Old Testament. The heart was given to me, but I took it based on my worldview, and I just took it in a whole other direction. But anyways, we're sitting here by the creek, and I'm sitting here crying, and Brandon is just telling me about love and that I'm accepted and that God values me regardless of what's going on in my life, regardless of what's going on here and what's going on here. This is what he's after. He's after my heart. He wants to see what I care about. My value doesn't change with the seasons. My value doesn't change with what I'm going through. My value is constant. And for some reason, it just clicked, because that girl I was dating, the only missing component that was not written on that series of notes, the things I wanted in a girl, I didn't ask for love, oddly enough. I didn't say, I want somebody who loves me unconditionally, that's going to choose me. I said, I want a girl that's about 5'5", 5'7", something like that. I prefer light skin, red hair, green eyes, likes anime, all the worldly superficial stuff. I wanted that stuff, and I got that stuff in her, but I didn't get love. And guys, when you finally have somebody that chooses to love you for who you are, especially when you're down there in that pit and you're looking up and you're like, man, I hope there's a light out there somewhere. When you finally find somebody that shows you that you are valuable, even in your worst moments, that's when everything changes. In the Bible, there are countless times where Jesus would meet people, and before he would even try and give them any level of conviction, he would love them. He looked beyond the fact that they were prostitutes. He would look beyond the fact that they were tax collectors. He would look beyond the fact that they've done a lot of bad crap in their life. And he is like, you have value. You are worth my time. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to address you because you deserve to be addressed. I'm going to show you love. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to provide for you. And then I'm going to teach you. And you can follow me if you want to. Guys, that's the gospel. That is who Jesus is. He cares. He really does. He cares about you, and he sees your value even when you don't. And man, I feel like I'm about to tear up just thinking about this, but I can look back and see how through my entire life he was pursuing my heart. And I completely missed it up until I got to a point where I couldn't strive anymore. I had striven for 8 or 9 years trying to become something that I thought that I wanted to be, and that wasn't good enough. And guys, when you get to that point where you have strived and strived and strived and strived, and it's still not good enough, you just get to a level of brokenness, and you're just looking for love. It helps you purify, have clarity on what's actually important. Solomon, if you read through all of his stuff, had everything. He had money. He had several wives, which is a whole nother topic. But he had a kingdom. He had fields. He had everything. If he wanted it, he had it. And he said it's vanity and chasing after the wind, and all this stuff that you might be chasing right now, trying to find your value. It is vanity and chasing after the wind. You're never going to be fulfilled from that stuff. There are so many people I've talked to in the course of my life who have had tons of money. They've got the cars, they've got the lifestyle, but they're still empty people. I know people who have the degrees that I thought that I wanted, the house that I thought that I wanted, the friend circle, the amount of friends on Facebook that I thought that I wanted, and in talking to them, they're not happy. And it's not even about being happy. They're not fulfilled. But when I was feeling broken and Brandon was talking to me about who Jesus was and who he actually wanted to be in my life, it clicked. I started to see it. I started to see that I had value, and that over the course of my life, when I was being dumb, when I was being a butthead, in times where I was loving people well, God was responsible for shepherding me in a right way. I hate using terms like that, but and I just hate using terms like that because it sounds so Christian. Maybe I need to get over that. I don't know. But the Bible says that if you knock, the door will be opened. If you seek, you shall find. And I started asking God to show me where he was present in my life. And he started doing it. And, in hindsight is 2020. Funny enough, this is the year of vision. It's a lot easier to see things when you're looking for it and you ask for it. Things started happening. I remember one specific time. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I was just, I don't know a better term, despairing. I don't know. I was just like really frustrated and whatnot. And I was just like, I don't want to say sobbing. I was just having one of those moments that you only have in your bedroom after a breakup. 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get a message from Brandon that is absolutely encouraging. And it was something to the effect of, God loves you, and he wants you to know that you're not alone. He wants you to know that he's helping you through this, and all these things. And it's so weird because I didn't tell him that I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I just randomly, I was playing League of Legends or something, and then like at 1 o'clock, I was just like, ugh. And so I was just sitting in my bed thinking, and the more I thought, the more depressed I got. And then here comes this text from Brandon. And after the fact, I was talking to him, and he said, yeah, I was sleeping. I just randomly woke up, he said, at like 3:30, and God put you on my heart. And he said, you need to encourage Tim. And it was exactly when I needed it. And the more I started knocking on God's door, the more stuff like that would happen. And the more I started allowing stuff like that to be I guess the more I started giving God credit for the stuff he was doing in my life, the more stuff he allowed me to do to love other people. And I'll go into more of those stories in the future. But that's when it changed. All the pressure was lifted. I realized that I didn't have to strive to be valuable, and I didn't have to strive to be loved. I was worthy of being loved exactly where I was, the way I was, in the weakness that I was, in the messed up state that I was. I was worthy of being loved. And Brandon really modeled that for me. And what's weird is once I acknowledged that was Jesus in my life, and I started opening myself up saying, all right, God, Jesus, show yourself to me. Man, everything changed. I met all the awesome friends that I have now, all the people that were willing to put their pride on a cross too, in order to show me that I was valuable to them. And they wouldn't judge me for who I was. Excuse me. They weren't judging me for my past. They didn't judge me for living with my parents until I was 28. They didn't judge me for the mistakes and relationships I had made. They didn't judge me for the things I was doing in the moment, the weaknesses that they were saying, okay, well, your name is Tim. Who are you? What do you care about? What's God doing in your life? Oh, okay. Well, what do you want? Well, like, what are your desires? How are you doing that? What are you working through? And it's really weird. Like, for the first time in my life, I felt known. I felt valuable. I felt seen. And what's even more weird is I wasn't working to try to do it. It was just happening because I said, God, show me who I am. Show me what you're doing in my life. And that simple invitation is what changed everything. So we're talking about breaking the meta. Guys, the whole reason I founded Break the Meta, and it's not even me, honestly. You know, I've got to give God credit for this, because if it wasn't for him and what he's been doing in my life, I wouldn't have had the perspective that I have on this and have the testimonies and just the experiences and the humility and the vulnerability that I have to be able to bear my life to you guys. Because my life really, it's not worth preserving. I don't have to preserve it. You know, who I am and stuff, my value isn't quantified by how many of you approve of my videos in the comments down below. You know, even if you thumbs it down, or if you have hate comments about Christianity or your experiences with that, you know, my value doesn't change on that. And that's why it's so easy for me to, you know, because I know that you are dealing with this in some form or fashion, or have, or will, or know people who are. And if my life can be a testament to what God can do and how he can turn that stuff around and who you really are and how valuable you actually are, that's the whole point of this. You know, talking about break the meta, break the most effective tactic available. You know, the most effective, the true meta that you should follow is the one that God builds with you as you get to know him, not the world, or not expectations of other people, or not expectations of who you think you need to be. So how do you break the meta in your life? How do you understand what your meta is? And I think you just have to take a step back and just understand that you have to build from a foundation of understanding that your value is, it has been, and it will always be the same. And it's extremely valuable. A lot of us can get convinced that our lives are not valuable and other people's lives are not valuable, and that we are not worth the time. We are not worth the effort. We are not worth gifts. We are not worth love, but you are. And you can't build a house unless you pour the foundation. If you build a house without a foundation, it's just going to sink and crumble like mine did. So when you seek to understand your meta, you got to start breaking off all the things in your life that you think you need, that you actually don't. What is your driving force? Where are you going? What is your purpose? In the little intro, that sick little intro that I made, the reason I highlighted purpose is that God has put a purpose on your life. Your life has a purpose. Anything of value has purpose. And you have a purpose. You need to identify what that is, because when you start seeing that you're valuable, you can understand what to do with that. And what you do with that is not just buying a house. It's not just getting a degree, and it's not getting someplace. God's gift to man is his toil. God's gift to man is the things that he does day after day after day. It's not getting through the day. It's not striving to get a lot of presents under the tree at Christmas because, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. It's not striving to be the perfect man in Maxim magazine that looks the best and sounds the best. Part of walking through your purpose is taking what you have, working on the weak points, and using your strengths in a way that nobody else can. And you can't do that following the model that somebody else has created. And that's why your relationship with God has to be personal to you. Now, you have to be careful, because universalism is saying that everything is acceptable. Everybody's walk is acceptable. That's true to a degree. But as I mentioned earlier, you have to balance accountability with growth, right? Like in my relationship with my wife, to say that everybody's walk is acceptable would mean to say, oh, well, if I have a weakness and I cheat on my wife, that's just part of my process. That's acceptable. No, that is not acceptable. There is accountability there because I've made a commitment to my wife that I'm not going to do that. And if I actually love her properly, my goal is to work on what's in my heart so that my thoughts don't come out of my mouth as words and actions that are going to commit to things that are going to hurt somebody and not love them properly. That is your process. That is your purpose. That's part of your purpose, right? But you have to be willing to allow God to work on your heart and show you what your value is. Show you what your value is. So, where do you begin? That's a really good question. And it's going to be different for everybody. But I want to walk with you through it. I want to talk to you about how I began. I want to talk to you about all the things that I've done in my life where I have failed, all the relationships that I've messed up, and all the times that I've heard God's voice properly, and all the times that I've perverted his voice in my life and just done things Tim's way. It's cost me a lot when I try to do things on my own strength. And funny enough, when I've done things on my own strength, that's really built up my pride, thinking that I was the answer. Much like doing this channel, it's really easy to get into the mode of thinking that I'm going to be your answer. And I'm not going to be your answer. If you're looking at me like I'm going to be your answer, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you. All I can do is just talk to you about what God's done for me and how he's done it and what that looks like. And it's just going to be one of those processes where it's going to be full of me just bearing it all for you so that you can identify those things in your life and honestly just challenge those areas of your life where you may need to submit your heart to God and let him help you with that stuff, because no amount of self-help books, no amount of YouTube how-to videos are going to help you have a heart change. And there's so much stuff in your life where you can change things here and you still feel stressed out because it's not a heart change. And turning your life around from being where I was to where I'm at now can only be a heart change. You can't fabricate that. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, and it almost seems like it has to start here and go here, which is partially true, I guess. But I just want you to know that all you have to do is take it one step at a time. Allow God to show you things in his time. Allow him to give you grace. Give yourself grace. Learn what that actually means. You have to let yourself be loved before you can love other people. And you can't hold other people responsible for loving you, because love has to be something done. It has to be a choice. It has to be something that they do generously. Nobody can love you because of force or manipulation. And the only way that you're going to understand what true love feels like is if you allow God to show you what that actually is. It has to start there. And once again, those of you shaking your head saying that, or thinking that God is only out there to hurt you, I want to challenge you. I know that's how a lot of people view God. And unfortunately, that's what's been modeled by a lot of people who profess to follow him. But give him a chance, even if it's one of those things where you're not really open to it, like you deserve a chance in people's lives. It really sucks when you go in front of somebody and it's almost like they've written you off before you even get to introduce yourself. Whenever that happens, you always have that feeling of, man, you don't even know who I am. And if all this stuff that I've been saying has you shaking your head in disbelief or skepticism, God feels that same way. He wants, just give him a chance. What's the worst that could happen? You know, the worst that could happen is you find out that God is actually a loving God and that he actually cares about you, you know? But anyways, that's my heart, guys, and that's where all this is coming from. That's how Break the Meta was founded. That's where I want to go with this. But anyways, I hope you join me as we navigate all this and as we tackle things in the future. And if you have questions on your own, we do have a Discord server that I want to invite you to be a part of. I'll link it in the comments below. And if this has helped you, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell or whatever. I don't know what YouTube people do. But I want you to join me. I don't want you to have to do this alone. You know, navigating this, I was not alone. I had my friend Brandon. I had a whole circle of healthy friends that started coming into my life. And you might not have those people. You might not have one person. But I want to extend an offer. I want to be that person with you. You know, I want to give you grace. I want to give you mercy. I want to give you patience. And I want to do my best to love you in the way that God loved me. So if you hit the subscribe button, you'll get videos that are uploaded frequently. I don't know how frequently right now, but yeah, it'll just be a process. But anyways, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time.